Hello, and welcome to the Elevate Entrepreneur, where we decode the success of some of the greatest entrepreneurs that I've met, that I know, that I trust. These individuals have not only built their business up, but they've also impacted lives for the better. Here you will learn not only how to grow your business, but also inspire you to want to be just a little bit better. I'm your host, Raylan Davis. My entire intention is to remove obstacles and excuses as to why people can't realize they deserve more. With that being said, let's jump into this week's episode. Stay motivated, stay elevated. All right, so today my guest, Jeff, is a sought-after mental toughness and peak performance coach who helps guide clients to intentionally step into the best versions of themselves and unlock their inner hero waiting to be unleashed. Jeff is the #1 best-selling author, Tony Robbins award-winning podcast winner, podcast host, there's a comma there for a reason, creator of the 4-step morning fire methodology. He's a practitioner, leading by example. And here's my favorite part, and I'm literally going to start the conversation here, Jeff. Completing his second David Goggins 4x4 by 48 mile run. He's meditated for over 1,900 straight days and taking an ice bath or a cold shower 1,400 straight days. Listen, man, if you're one of those people that you have more to you than what meets the eye, you know that you're leaving something in the tank, this right now is going to be the episode for you. So with that being said, Jeff, thanks for doing the podcast, man. And also thanks for bearing with me as I go through like technical problems.
Thanks for having me. That's a great mental toughness exercise we just went through, right?
Yeah, exactly. Okay, let's get started with this 4x4 by 48. Okay, for those that don't know, explain this crazy challenge, and then afterwards I'm going to tell you a story about how I broke my legs doing that stupid challenge. So go ahead. Explain what the 4x4 48 is. Yeah,
it's 4x4 by 48, and David Goggins, ultra marathon runner, he held the pull-up record. I mean, he's done some crazy things, and this is basically you start running on Friday night at 11 p.m. Eastern. You run 4 miles. You rest for whatever time you've got, and then 4 hours later, you're going to run 4 miles again. So you basically do 12 legs of a 4-mile run over 48 hours. It's almost, 2 marathons in 48 hours. So I had a buddy a couple years ago who tagged me in it. Then I had another buddy who said, we should do this. And I said, all right, this sounds pretty crazy, and I like doing crazy stuff. So I trained and got it done, and I've got a Navy SEAL who's a Wim Hof certified instructor, and he says, when you do something once, fantastic, congratulations. But now you understand the pain that's it's gonna take and involve. True grit, true mental toughness is doing it again. So that's why I did it again this year. So, yep.
So then, are you a runner by trade? Like, do you run a lot, or you just kind of jumped in?
I hate running. Long distance running is not my thing. I love pounding, the iron and lifting. But I know there's some benefits to it. So I just started training and setting myself up for success. And I would say I planned out everything that I could to the smallest detail. And that was the only reason why I got it done that first year.
So, the reason I did, so obviously like not everybody else, but I read, Can't Hurt Me, obviously an amazing book. I love David Goggins in general. And, I was kind of feeling like a little bit of a lull, just like in my physical life, right? Like I was lifting. So, I'm a jiu-jitsu practitioner. Before that, I was a MMA fighter, and I was in this weird stage where I was like, oh, I'm not a competition guy anymore, right? Like I don't get paid to fight anymore. So what am I still training jiu-jitsu for, whatever. So anyway, I was like, I need to do something that really challenges me. So I heard he was talking about doing the 4x4 by 48. And mind you, Jeff, I ran a little bit before, but I hadn't ran in a year. Okay. Learned about the challenge, and then literally a day later started. Wow. So stupid. So, but here's what I loved about it and why 100% I think everyone should do it. So when it kind of jolted me into like just doing something hard, I just realized that my life got kind of easy. And in doing it, I think it was the last 12 hours, my shins, because I'm an idiot and didn't buy new shoes. So I had old running shoes that already had hundreds of miles on them. So my shins I couldn't even walk. So the last 12 hours I actually did on the elliptical. Okay. Because I couldn't walk anymore. But yeah, like I'm glad that you were smart enough to prepare. I would again, but it's like I wouldn't change anything because I loved, and also too like my fiance, who was just my girlfriend at the time, she was helping me get up and wake up, because those little naps you take, because they're really naps. Because look, depending on how long it takes you to run 4 miles, you may be sleeping like 20 minutes tops, like, because you have to cool down. I took a shower after every time, and you have to eat, and so it gets a little difficult. But you did it 2 years in a row.
I did 2 years in a row, and I'll tell you what, the second year I crushed it. I mean, the first year I was just all about finishing. I mean, I had it.
You were surviving
planned,
at that point, yeah.
Yes, I had it planned out where I knew the route I was running every single time. I knew my recovery. I'd come stretch. I'd start an ice cold bath to recover. I'd get that in. I'd get in some compression sleeves for my legs. I'd eat the same thing at 11 p.m. on Friday, on 11 p.m. Saturday. Like, I didn't want to expend any mental energy of thinking of what I needed to do, because it was a true test that first year. Second year, I mean, I crushed my times. I mean, I was just in the zone. But that first year, it was really challenging. And then people are like, "How the hell did you do that?" And I was like, "Because you decide to do it. You fully commit."
Yes.
And so many people are playing halfway, half-assing things, right? Like one foot in the boat, 1 foot on the island, and they're not burning the boats. They're not going all in. And I love the physicality of those type of challenges and doing things, because it unlocks such mental strength in you.
Yeah. So the next thing I want to talk about was, like, one of my favorite things you wanted to discuss was the idea that identity is the key to transformation. And I love this for kind of a couple of reasons. It's because there's that book, Start With Why, Simon Sinek. Mm-hmm. Everyone's obsessed with it. And I thought I was a weirdo, because I was like, I don't agree with that. I think you start with who. Like, who are you? Who do you want to be, right? Who is the people you have? All those things. And so talk to me a little bit about that concept, right? Like, creating the future you. Like, what do you mean by the who in the transformation part of this?
And so many times we rely on our feelings to take action, right? It's this equation. How do we feel? What action do we take? And then what's our identity? And we kind of learn that when we grow up. If you're not feeling 100%, you were going to go outside. What does your mom or dad say? Don't worry about it. Take it easy. Okay, we don't take action. So we kind of learn to trust our feelings. Well, our feelings betray us, right? Our mind wants to keep us safe and certain. If we feel any kind of twinge of uncomfortableness or uncertainty, the mind will stop us. So many times we want to do things, but we don't feel like it. I don't feel like getting up every morning and hitting my morning routine or meditating, but I do it anyway, because that's who I am from an identity perspective. So if you think of the equation, feelings, actions, identity, that's how 99% of people operate. Well, if you're not feeling well, maybe conditions, you said running, right? We're talking about Goggins and running. If it's raining out, 99.9% of people are going to go, I don't feel like it, so I'm not going to do it. You feel shitty, and you kind of spiral downward, right? That's the way most people operate. I love to flip it around and say, what's your identity first? And I focus on 3 main areas: energy, work, and love. So energy, I wake up, I'm a world-class athlete every day. By defining that identity, I take action upon it, and then I feel freaking fantastic, and I spiral upwards. Where there isn't a day I don't step into that identity, and then I truly take action upon it. So imagine how powerful it is when you define your identity, when you start your day. And it doesn't need to be who you are right now. It can be a future pacing your success. And so many times our minds fight us because we don't have clarity of who we want to show up as. So if you define your identity, energy-wise, work-wise, love-wise, here's how you're going to show up. And here's how you're going to shift, right? If I'm in the gym, that identity is much different than dad and husband of the year, right? In my love identity defined. That's much different than CEO of a $10 million company on the work side. So by defining your identity, you take actions and you show up as that person. And regardless of your feelings, that's who you are today. And if you have that mindset, it can be incredibly, incredibly powerful. So you don't rely on your feelings, because your feelings don't want you to do the things you know you need to do to be successful personally and professionally.
I think, too, what I love about it is, like, growing up, and I've talked about this a lot in the podcast, is that I realized that my past self, right? Like, we do this thing where we define our identity by what happened in the past.
Right.
So we create stories and meaning around it, and we go, all right, this is who I am. Well, I didn't like who I was at one point, right? Like my past wasn't all that great. I wasn't a smart kid, all these things. And so one day I accidentally discovered I'm just going to make up who I like you know what I mean? Like I'm a smart kid, right? I'm this. And then I literally reinvented my life by literally recreating. And so what I hear you saying is like, look, it sounds to me like obviously, if this is not a fair statement, you can call me out on it. But I feel like most people do this unconscious thing every day, and then there's like who I am, instead of stopping for a minute and then choosing who they get to show up as. Is that fair?
Absolutely. It's that intentionality, right? That so many people, we're in a busy culture. If you ask 100 people, 99 will say, how's your day? 99% will say busy. So we're not taking that time to say, okay, this is how I'm going to show up. And you have a choice, a very powerful choice every single day to say, you know what, yesterday's gone, flush it, be done with it. Today, how do I want to show up? What's the truest identity that I want to create and then live by? And it's so incredibly powerful to have that awareness and then that intentionality to step into the best version of yourself.
Do you get a sense that like most recently true self and authenticity has been like buzzwords, right? Do you get the sense like me, and again, you can always call me out if I'm wrong here, but I get the sense that people started using it as a fucking excuse. They're like, oh, I got to stick to my true self. That's not my authentic self. Well, your authentic self, the way that they define it is like how they feel, really. It's like, well, I don't want to, maybe I don't want this or don't want that. Your past self doesn't want it. That's your ego speaking, right? But like, if you had to create the future you, to me, it's like, it's almost as if we're saying your future self, the one in which you create, that's your true self because you're choosing that one. Is that fair or am I crazy?
No, you are spot on there, right? You're choosing who you want to be. And most people aren't even choosing who they're just so used to the past. They're stuck in that lane that everybody is going down and they can't get it out of their own way. They've heard stories. They've heard you can't teach a dog new tricks, complete bullshit, right? Like they're stuck. They're in the matrix and they don't even know it.
Yeah. Yeah. That's why, again, growing, like as I get older, The Matrix is like even such a good movie. Just like even more so. I mean, granted, when I was a kid, I loved it because obviously who doesn't love Kung Fu? But like, and then you grow up and you're like, oh, like we really are on this hamster wheel that was created not by us, but like the limiting beliefs of others and so on and so forth. Out of curiosity for you, was there a moment you realized you had to create, you know, a new Jeff and live into that? Like, what was your moment that you realized like, oh, I'm unconscious, time to get conscious?
Yeah, it was just over 8 years ago. I lost my mom to breast cancer. So I watched the woman that brought me into this world literally take her last breath. And that's where I kind of snapped, right? Where it was such a deep, searing pain, questioning everything and questioning what is my purpose in this world? Do I want to continue being in corporate America? Do I want to continue being a square peg in a round hole? Do I want to continue kind of just going through the motions because I saw her pass? I know how fragile life can be. What do I want to do? And that was the trigger. And then there's been many iterations in those 8 years of me leveling up, continuing to be on that quest, that journey. And listen, I'll never get there. Right? We're fed this lie that there's this destination you'll get to and it's a white sandy beach and crystal blue ocean and you're going to be fine with sitting there by yourself for, you know, and just celebrating and enjoying it. You'll be that way for 2 or 3 days, then you'll be unhappy, right? So it's just this constant never-ending quest. But really the pain of losing my mom, and I wear a pink wristband on my right arm to remind me of her daily, and that's not to have me go crawl in a corner and wallow and missing her. It's to, hey, every day is a gift. How am I going to choose to use this gift today? Because one day I'm not going to be able to have that gift. And I want to play full out, maximize my impact, help others, and really pay homage to her. And I told her our last deep conversation because she was scared she wouldn't be remembered. And I told her, I said, Mom, I will continue to keep your memory alive through my 2 sons. And I'm going to pass that positivity, that hope all over the universe. So, that's the promise I made to her, and that was the trigger for my transformation.
Yeah, I think that's like so many people worry about that, the being remembered part, right? I think, I think arguably it's probably one of the scariest parts of death in and of itself. And not to get morbid here, but like, Ryan Holiday, the guy who writes the Daily Stoic, and he's written several books, he talks constantly about the need to ponder about mortality, right? Like it's the, what was it? Memento Mori? Yeah, right? Like, remember you will die. Mm-hmm. And I think that gives us, oddly, it's not, to me, it's not morbid. It's just a good reminder, like, like we don't know when the clock's up, So can we make the most out of today? Tomorrow isn't promised. And then, also again, in Ryan Holiday, and not just him, but also he's obviously reiterating what the Stoics said. But, when you wake up and you're like, oh man, I woke up. I was prepared. Again, this is messed up, but I was prepared to die yesterday. This is a gift. Mm-hmm. I wasn't expecting to have this. So it sounds like, again, that kind of gave you some context to go, well, what am I doing all this for then?
Yeah, totally did. And I keep that death close to me, right? And so many people avoid the thought of it. But if you remind yourself, man, it gives you tremendous leverage on that fear, on that procrastination that trickles so many times into our lives, because you can remind, like, I'm going to be gone one day. What am I scared of? What am I fearful? Why am I delaying? Because I might not get tomorrow as a gift. So it's an incredible thing and so many times we shy away from it because death is painful. But if you can keep it a little bit close to you to get some leverage on that fear, on that procrastination, it's incredibly powerful.
I think people misunderstand that, right? Like, it's not just about thinking about that quote unquote negative thought. It's just a reminder of what's a reality, right? But just out of curiosity, what were you doing before when you were in corporate space? Like, what was your position? What were you doing there?
I was supply chain consulting, tech consulting, kind of working for small companies, and then last company was a Fortune 500 company.
Okay, and then how did those things, those skills you developed there, help you in what you're doing now? Because like for me, for example, like I happen to own a marketing agency. I happen to, have a coaching academy, but like the skill sets, actually, my apprenticeship, as I call it, was when I was a executive doing sales in corporation, like managing people, coaching teams. Like that was my apprenticeship. And then, transition over to entrepreneurship. It's like, oh, that's where the skills developed. So is there anything that you brought with you from that experience over to becoming a coach now?
I would say not a lot. I mean, back when I was in corporate America, I was, if there was a group of 80, I was like the last one to stand up and speak, where now I get paid to professionally speak to companies and corporations. So it was all about getting out of that comfort zone. And people can get very comfortable when they're getting a paycheck and they're doing enough not to get fired, but not doing enough to stand out. And, I'm sure if I really think about it deeply, I'm sure I can pick a few. I would say building relationships would be one that just popped in, where I've always been able to build rapport quickly and build relationships with people, which helps you in any aspect of your life.
Yeah. Well, also the reason why I ask selfishly is because I know there's a lot of people that listen to this that are, maybe in a corporate world right now, and they're like, I want to be a coach one day. And I've talked to, oddly enough, so many coaches that they're like, yeah, but I don't have any skill sets that I could do it yet. And I'm like, sometimes we forget, because it's so easy, it comes natural to us. Like, no, people don't know how to do that. Like, even the small thing of like, well, I guess I build relationships pretty well. There's people out there that are like, have no idea how to do that. You know what I mean? Like, there's always something. And then even to what you do for people, helping them find purpose, helping them, get the most out of their day, helping people become a high performer in their life, that in some ways came easy to you, and you figured out a blueprint, you figured out your thing. And people are like, yo, I have no idea. First of all, there's people that don't even know they're stuck.
Right.
You know what I mean? So it's just interesting to think about. So for you, can you talk to me a little bit about, like, again, your journey to being the coach you are today? Meaning, like, why performance coaching, right? Because arguably I've worked with probably at this point 150 some odd coaches or consultant and their offers. The hardest one ever to sell is mindset or performance. It's the most difficult. Sales is easy. If you're a marketer, all that's easy. But because to sell the intangible is fucking hard, Jeff. So I guess my first question is, how the fuck do you do it? Secondly is like, why did you, out of all the things you could teach people, like why that?
So when I left corporate America, I actually opened up a gym locally, had a brick and mortar location. I always say it was in between a CrossFit box and like a local YMCA. So functional fitness, but a little bit more rest in between sets and exercises. And as I was going through that journey, I started leveling up myself, right? I started doing things that were different. I wasn't hanging out with the buddies, drinking till 4 a.m. anymore. I was really starting to evolve as a human being, personally and professionally. That gave me a lot of confidence to say, wait a second, this is working for me. Could it work for somebody else? And I saw so many people come into the gym or just put in an application to come in and see me. And I would call, text, email, Facebook message, and it's crickets on like 70%. And I got to thinking, why do so many people take time to fill out a complete application, but then they don't have the courage to actually have a conversation? I'm like, it is the mindset. Their mind is like, there's no way you can do this. You've tried everything. You're just not going to be successful. So it was a pain point for the prospects that were there. And I started diving in and saying, okay, how can I help the mindset? How can I help my mindset? And I said, well, what about bookending your days? How's that last 30 minutes look like? What's that first 30 minutes? Because we can't really control in the middle, especially when there's external forces out there, right? But you can control, hey, how do I prepare for a good night's sleep? How do I prepare to get some quick wins, stack wins right in the morning? I did it for myself. And I said, okay, let me go out to a subset of my gym clients. Hey, try this out. And they said, this is freaking fantastic. I had a guy who I've known since 5 years old. So I'm 47, 42 years we've known each other. Linebacker, beast on the football field, played college football, so terribly shy and introverted and ridden with anxiety. Just couldn't speak to people. He went through my program. He's like, it totally changed my life. I'm the dad I now knew I should be. I'm the husband I should be, all through kind of controlling your day. And that's what kind of opened up that door a little bit to say, wow, there's something here. I was on my journey, so I'm living it. I'm practicing. I always tell my clients, I'm like, listen, I'm not going to put you through anything I've not tried on myself, because you spoke about authenticity before, and so many people are reading a book and then trying to coach somebody on it. I do it, and then I say, hey, here's what I learned, right? But seeing the results from them guided me down that path, and now it's getting into diving into the pain for these people. And it's consistently over and over again. 'Cause to your point, you said half the people don't even know they're in the matrix or know that they're stuck, right? So you've got to somehow hit those pain points and dive into it. And I always say, for many people, it's like throwing a smoke grenade into a cave. They're in the cave, they're fine, they got a fire, they're warm, but they're not the best version of themselves, and they're anxious, they may be stuck, they may be depressed, they may be suffering in quiet isolations. You need to get out and do things and be the best version, because related to my mom passing, you only get one trip around the sun, right? I mean, you only get so many opportunities. Do you want to look back on your deathbed with regret, right? And that's a terrible thing to think about.
I think it's interesting too. You mentioned the analogy of the smoke bomb in the cave, because also it's like I had posts recently, and I mentioned the deficits of ego, and somebody goes, well, ego is good. Well, like, give me examples of when ego is good. I said, well, it's not a matter of being good. It's a matter of, does it serve you the way you want it to? Meaning, yeah, that cave is super comfortable. Your ego protects you. That's what it's supposed to do, right? But also, is it protecting you the way that you want it to? Is like kind of like the question, right? Also, really quick side note: can you like put your hand over the camera? You're blurry. Like, do that little thing so it focuses. There we go. Now I can see you. I'm like going blind. I'm like, am I going blind or is Jeff? But I think, a lot of those people, sometimes it's about a choice. I jokingly say this, but, Jeff, between, us girls here, I'm a little serious in that I view myself, I'm not Neo in the Matrix. I'm Morpheus. I just give the choice. You can have this or this. Which one do you want to do? Because I think a lot of people do, and I get in trouble sometimes for saying this, but I say, look, I don't care if you come to me and say, Raylan or Jeff, I want this kind of life, but you don't do the work to get it. don't fucking come to me complaining about your life anymore, because you have the choice, right? Like, do something about it. And I don't even care if you fail, but you can't complain about your life. Once you have the choice, you're not allowed to complain and not go after it anymore. Like, that you can't have both. You know what I mean?
You can either have the victim mentality or the warrior mentality, and that's the choice you make, right? And I choose to fight and fight every day, and some days I fail. Yeah. But you're not the first perfect human being. I'm not. There never was. There never will be. Okay, give yourself grace. Get back up. Dust yourself off tomorrow, right? That's mental toughness, is knowing you're going to have dips, feeling it, feeling the pain of maybe a failure or a lesson, and dusting yourself off and saying, oh, holy shit, I got another day. I'm gonna do better today than I did yesterday. Okay, let's go.
Yeah. So one of the things, too, I really loved about your bio is that you talked about meditation. So talk to me a little bit about, like, we all know the quote-unquote benefits of meditation, but, like, for you, what is the purpose of meditation? Like, what do you do it for?
I do it just to center my mind right when I wake up. I'll do it throughout the day sporadically, and so many times we've gotten this perception of meditation, right? We have this picture of a bald monk cross-legged on a mountain, snow coming down. He's there for days on end. And I just recently had this conversation with my wife, because she said in 2023 she's going to meditate every day. And we were on a walk, and she's like, how do you define meditation? I say, it's a very personal thing. If you want to take 3 breaths, 6 count in, 2 second hold, 7 seconds out, 15 seconds for 45 seconds, that's a meditation practice. So it needs to be defined personally. I use it to just center myself in the morning as part of my morning fire routine. 10 minutes. I still use guided meditation after 5 straight years of it, because my mind still wanders. And so many times people do it once, they don't do it with a guided app, and their mind's bouncing everywhere, and they say, this is BS. I can't do it. I'm just not good at it.
Yeah.
Well, I'm still 5 years in of doing it every single day. I still have that time where my mind wanders. So it's just getting a little bit better. It's giving yourself some time to breathe. It's not being tethered to the phone of other people's wants, desires, and needs. How many people truly spend 10 minutes a day where they're just sitting there breathing and focusing on their breath and having somebody, feed their mind with positive thoughts and hopes and those things of a brighter future. That's what I love about it. I'd say the benefits. I've been more patient with my wife, with my sons. I've been a better husband, better father. I've been better in traffic, because when I'm in traffic, that's probably my biggest trigger of, like, dealing with that. But, the Stoic philosophy, stepping in between the stimulus and the response, and truly choosing how you should respond rather than responding just the way you've been taught or the way you've learned. Meditation has helped me do that more and more often in my life.
So for other people that, like, again, so, I recently got into meditation. Like, my father figure of mine, back when I first started fighting, he was old school Taekwondo guy. Like, he used to travel and he would fight competitively. And he jokingly, he's from Harlem, and he jokingly always say, like, back in the day, you either fight for belts or money. He goes, and I fought for money. And so anyway, even back then, he was trying to teach me how to meditate, because one of the things about fighting, for example, is, like, you can't blink when someone throws a punch at you, right? You got to get used to, like, that stimuli. So anyway, that was the purpose of it, and I never got into it until I did the Wim Hof workshop. So I did the Wim Hof workshop, and, for those that don't know, it's, 30 rounds of, quick inhale, exhales, something like hyperventilation, and then you do a breath hold at the end. And at one point, by the end of the workshop, I think we got up to, and Michael, the one that ran the workshop, sorry if I'm making this up, but I think it was like 2.5 minutes. We had a breath hold, like 2.5 minutes, maybe 3, which is crazy, by the way. I'm like, I didn't even know I could hold my breath that long. But in that breath hold, and they were playing sounds and drums and all that, it was I literally got choked up talking about it, because I was like, that was the first time I've ever heard silence. Yep. I was actually, like Dr. Joe Dispenza talks about it, the idea of becoming no one, nowhere, no time. And I was like, that was the first time I was like, oh, that's meditation. But I used breath work to help me get there, because without it, to your point, you have to redirect your brain. No, come back over here. And you're like, oh, I got to do this. No, come back over here. But with the breath work, I think it occupied my mind so much until the breath hold, and then literally it was the first time my brain's ever heard silence. So after that, I got really obsessed with the idea of meditation because I was like, oh, that's what it is. And ever since then, I've been kind of chasing that divine silence. You know what I mean? So I was just kind of curious for someone else that's a practitioner of meditation, of what kind of drew you to it and what keeps you going with it.
It's just creating space in an otherwise chaotic world, right? Giving yourself the ability to just take time and just breathe. And I've done Wim Hof sessions. I mean, I mentioned I've got a former Navy SEAL who's Wim Hof certified instructor. I actually had him out to the house 2 years ago to do a session with some of the men I coach. And it was, for the guys that hadn't gone through it before, it was a emotional, trippy experience. Like,
I told you, dude. I had cried. Like, I literally was like about to cry because I was like, it was silent.
Yep. And I had a vision of like my mother, who had passed during it. And like, I've had it because I've done it multiple times. Like, you can't even move your legs because you're such in a calm state. And it's wild. There are so many things, Raylan, that we can do naturally to help ourselves physically and mentally. It's incredible. I mean, I literally just got off the phone with a guy I'm going to be coaching soon. And I talked about the Superman power pose. Like, you do that for 2 minutes. Put your Superman, Wonder Woman. If you're dealing with a difficult call or you need some courage, I mean, put your hands on your side, chest up, chin down. You do that for 2 minutes. You increase your testosterone by 23%, your courage vitamin, and you decrease your cortisol by 17%, your stress kind of hormone. Those are simple things. We just talked about Wim Hof breathing, like getting into this deep meditative state. It's incredible what we can do, but so many people are missing those kind of little small things that add up to huge accomplishment, huge growth in your life, because when you practice them, you're a whole different person.
How interesting is it, though, especially someone that works on with people, these things are so simple, yet and still they're not easy because our brain goes, oh, we'll do it later, or I'll do it tomorrow. And then you never do it. Again, I've probably done that Wim Hof. Well, granted, I had to find, for me, maybe you can talk about this a little bit too, is that I knew I wanted to do the Wim Hof breath work a lot. But for whatever reason, I never found a routine that stuck. So what I did was, I go to a place called Optimize that has cold plunge, and then now I do the Wim Hof breath work in the cold plunge. So now I have a trigger, right? So it's I go there, I get in the tub, and now it's Wim Hof time, right? Now it's breath work time. So that becomes my trigger, but I needed to find that because I just would say, I'm going to do Wim Hof today, or I'm going to do, because the cool thing is people don't know this. You can go to YouTube, type up Wim Hof breath work, and he has a 12-minute, like, you just do it. Like, you don't need to buy anything. That's the beautiful thing about breath work. Yo, it's free. I don't know if y'all know this. But it's free 99. It's crazy. Anyway, but so, like, again, what about those people that are like, I have a million things that I want to do. I know I need to do it, Jeff. Like, for whatever fucking reason, I just can't get myself to be better, right? Like, I can't, for whatever reason, I can't stick to any fucking routines. I know I need to be waking up early. I know I need a book in my days. But I literally, for whatever reason, within a week, I quit on myself. Like, how would you help those people?
Number one, make what you're going to do so simple, so small, so easy that it's downright laughable. You want to meditate? Take one breath for an entire week. You need to decrease the resistance to doing it and decrease the effort when you're starting. Feel progress. Celebrate that progress. Like, so many times we do something and it's just on to the next. Like, we never say, like, yes, fucking A, right, I did it. Like, let's go.
Jeff, I'll tell you right now, I suck at that.
Yeah. But that's the human condition. You're not any different than me, right? Like, I need to practice that, and I need to be intentional and like, hey, I kicked butt on this coaching call. Yes. Like, we don't do it. So make it so small, simple that it's laughable. Don't bite off too much too soon, and then continue to layer on.
Was
right?
that Atomic Habits? Sorry, was that the Atomic Habits that he said? Like, yo, if you're just starting to work out, just go to the gym. Don't even work out. Just drive to the gym. That's your first step. Was that? I think that was Atomic Habits.
I don't know if it was James Clear or Tom. It probably was. I mean, I love that book. It's on the back shelf here. But yeah, make it so simple that it's laughable and you can do it, right? And then celebrate your success. I would also say, planning the night before and doing it first thing in the morning, that's when your body and mind is the freshest it's ever going to be. And you can stack wins early in the morning to gain that momentum. And I have a rule with all my clients, anybody that's gone through my programs, no distractions when you wake up. Meaning, plan for what you're doing, no distractions, wake up, bang them out, and then check your phone. Like that phone is the tractor beam on the Death Star, right? And it'll take you down a dark path. Do not touch it. I don't care if there's 45 text messages there. It does not matter. Stack wins, get progress. Do those things that are small, easy, that you should do, but you haven't yet. Track it, and then all of a sudden you start to get momentum.
Jeff, I'll tell you this. I'm about like a day away from buying an old school alarm clock, because that is the death trap. My alarm goes on my phone. I turn it off, and then I go, oh, what's this? And then I'm working, because I have a team in the UK, Canada, and so I have team members texting me about stuff or messaging me about stuff. So I'm like, oh, I'm already working right when versus just jumping in. So I actually had a kind of a point on this, is that, so the people that you're working with now, if you had to summarize it, what would you say their dream outcome is? Like, what do you think, what did they want, if there's a through line there? And then two, what do you think is like their number one problem that gets in the way of that? Again, if you could find somewhat of a through line.
Number one problem is time, right? Everybody struggles with time, right? And other people putting priorities, their wants, desires, and needs on top of ours. And so many times we kind of concede to, okay, that's more important than what I want. No, you can be creating the story that is your life, the movie that is your life, and taking back control. So that's number one. Number two is people want to be more consistent. They want to be better, but they lack accountability. So many times we have accountability. I know you were in the fighting circle, but we have accountability when we're kids, parents, coaches, teachers, whatever it is. All of a sudden we get into adulthood, and it's like we're released to the wild. Good luck. You have zero accountability. See if you can get anything done. And then people fall short, right? There's no accountability as adults unless you get around groups, masterminds, have a coach that says, hey, get your shit done every day. Stop playing victim mode. We all feel like crap at times, but get it done. That's those two things, time and consistency, and then kind of sprinkling in the accountability are kind of key things that I see consistently over and over again people struggle with. They know, you said it, they know what to do. They don't do it, and they don't do it on a consistent basis.
Yeah, and so that's kind of, I think, accountability, the more and more, because when I started I have this thing called the Elevated Coaches Academy. It's like a program / mastermind, whatever. But the reason why, and it's like for beginners and mid-level, I jokingly say like blue belts and purple belts, right? There's a belt system of coaching, right? But the most, I always say I don't give anybody anything they didn't already have. The truth is they have all the information to grow an online business. They don't really need me, right? They don't really, but the reason why the group works and people get results, it's because they hold each other accountable. There's no secret sauce to it. It's literally on Mondays we go, all right, Jeff, I'm going to get this done. And then Jeff reaches out on Friday and goes, hey, did you do it? Right. That's literally it. That's the secret sauce. Like, that's literally it. So I'm curious, though, for you, is there anything that you still need a coach for, that you still need accountability towards? Like, because for me, oddly enough, it's the taking care of myself part that I have to kind of outsource a bit. Like, for example, I have somebody that essentially runs my life. She happens to be my fiance. She's like my right hand in the business, but she has to schedule time in my day to eat. Like, I had to, I'm hiring a personal trainer because and I still, compete in jiu-jitsu, but I have a coach there too. I have to have that because oddly enough, I work a lot. And I put other people's, but I have a really hard time, Jeff, putting myself first. So I had to outsource that. So I guess for you, is there something still that you're on the journey of and learning and discovering about yourself and that you need still accountability for along your journey?
Well, number one, I've had coaches in my 6-7 years outside of corporate America. I mean, I've probably spent close to 6 figures on coaches and mentors and guides, because that's just if you want to get there quicker, find somebody that's done it and then pay them to get you there quicker, right? So I'm a huge fan of that. I have a coach that is in this space, but a couple steps ahead of me, right? From a knowledge, from a guidance, I'm always connected to him. I'm in a couple groups, and then I have somebody on the business side that's helping me, refine my message. I've had a PR and a speaker coach before. I've had, back in my gym days, I had coaches on the gym side of the business. So once you crack off a little piece, and there's this great documentary, if you haven't watched it, it's called Finding Joe, out on YouTube, and it's Joseph Campbell who came up with basically the hero's journey. Mm-hmm. And in the beginning of the story, they talk about this golden Buddha, and there was this army that was going to invade, and they cover the golden Buddha and they move him inside, and years go by and nobody knows of the gold underneath, layers and trees and everything. And then all of a sudden one day a kid's playing and it cracks off a little piece and they can see the gold. When you do that in your life and you see a little bit of your potential, you will never be the same. You will constantly be on this quest to be the best version of yourself. You'll never get there, but it will be a heck of a journey. So I love bringing people on and having coaches all around me. I think that's, you're doing it as well. I think that's the myth that might be out there, is people are like, well, you don't need a coach. Well, heck yeah, I do. Everybody needs one. We all need to be more accountable. We all need to be more consistent.
That's also why I always, for those that listen to the podcast probably heard me ask that question a million times by now, because every single person I have on here, because there is this weird thing that happens where people think once you get to a certain level, you don't get a coach anymore, or it'd be a part of, and not everybody really even has a coach. Maybe it's a mastermind, maybe it's whatever. But usually when I'm trying to showcase for people that are listening that you never stop having someone, helping. And it could be a guide, a mentor, or a coach, whatever you want to name it. But everyone kind of still needs someone to help you see your bullshit. Even too, it's even my team, right? The people that I pay to help do things. I have this one person, she's amazing. I go, hey, I have this new idea, because I have a new idea every other day, Jeff. And so I'm like, hey, I want to do this thing, and here's what I want to do. And she goes, okay, let me ask you something. Should we can do that, but then that means every other project we're doing, we're gonna put a pause on that. Are you okay with that? Nice. Right? So she's coaching me. Yep. Right? And so everyone kind of needs that. And I think, again, we forget that. And something you mentioned I wanted to highlight too is you mentioned I usually have a coach that's a couple steps ahead of me. Mm-hmm. Listen, that's so important, because here's the mistake that I see people do especially when they're just getting started, is they'll get a coach that's a 7-figure coach. There's such a huge gap between you and that person that you can't even understand a word that they're talking about. I have this mentor, and it's fine. It's better now because we focus less on the business. We focus more on the mindset stuff. But my mentor, he's worth $100 million. When we first started talking and stuff, the concepts that he was talking about at that level, I was like,
yep.
Yo, I just cracked 30K a month. I don't know what, you know what I mean? Those are problems I don't have right now. So that is so important to just get get a coach, get a whatever that's just a few steps ahead, right? That can, help you do that.
I would add to that, what happens when they're so far ahead, imposter syndrome kicks in, self-doubt kicks in. You're like, how the heck do I? It's just like goal achievement. When you put such a goal out there and you don't chunk it up, the mind's like, there's no way. It basically says, bullshit, you're never going to get there. I would also say the other thing to think about when you're bringing on a coach is you've got to match from an energy perspective. I'm a high energy dude. I have made the mistake in the past of bringing on a coach that's energy was down here and I'm up here. Just doesn't work. Make sure you're on a same energy level. And then once you're done a coaching call or you're in a mastermind, everybody's ready to bust out the door, versus one being like, all right, have a great day, where you're like, man, you're bringing me down, right? So, a couple steps ahead, and be aware of their energy and make sure it matches at least somewhat closely to your energy level.
Yeah. Again, I think that's because also the thing too about coaching is that you should be inspired by that coach. Wouldn't you say? You should look up to them, and maybe it's not always the money side. I've had coaches that for example, the coach I mentioned before, he's worth millions and millions of dollars, but I don't have him as a mentor because of that. It's because of the way he operates as a father. as a husband, as a business owner, and he's helping me. I'm trying to see, okay, how do you manage all this shit? You know what I mean? Like, how do you? So that's actually what I'm getting coaching for, is like, how do I show up as my best self and not be selfish, but at the same time, you know what I mean? And so, but the energy levels, I think, is so incredibly important. The final thing I wanted to kind of get to was your rating day mentality to build grit, because I think grit gets not a bad rap, but I think there's a misconception about grit, or even resilience for that matter. And so maybe walk through what you mean by grit and resilience, but also, again, this rainy day method you're talking about.
Yeah, and that we talked about, I touched on it a little bit earlier when we were talking about the identity and the feelings that so many times we listen to. Rainy day mentality is perfect, right? When conditions aren't right, so many times that dictates what action we take. Where if you could use that as a reverse indicator, where, wait a second, conditions aren't right. Like we struggled getting on this podcast for 15 minutes?
Yeah.
We could have said, screw it, this isn't going to happen today. We said, no, let's chew on that, grit vitamin and say, no, we're going to get through it. We'll figure it out some way, right? That's when conditions aren't right. That's an opportunity to get ahead. Why? Because so many people give in to conditions not being right. I'll do it tomorrow. Where if you use that as a reverse indicator, hey, it's snowing out, it's rainy out, maybe my laptop's on the fritz, whatever it is, but you say, I am going to still push through those external circumstances. I'm still going to move forward with grit, with tenacity, and you get it done. It's such a momentum builder in your life, right? Think about two scenarios. Raining out, supposed to go for a 10-mile run, cold, windy, pretty nasty out. I'm going to stay home, not do it today. What do you feel? You feel shitty about yourself. Go out for the 10-mile run, get through it. All of a sudden the endorphins kick in. It's crappy out. You don't see another single person out there. Everybody thinks you're crazy. Get back. Holy crap, there's some momentum. I'm doing another thing that's more difficult after that, right? So it's using it to get ahead and understanding that other people are going to let those situations, those circumstances stop them, where you can use it as a leaping off point.
And not to mention too, I think the easiest kind of example is like the working out thing, right? Like I always jokingly always say that, like, has there ever been a time you went and worked out when you didn't want to and you were pissed that you did it? Like, no, you're always happy you did it, right? So it's like, even if it's not the best, right, circumstance, or even if it, you don't have the results you want, you still showed up, and most people would have quit. And I think that's something that you kind of put in your cap a little bit, is like, most people would have not shown up.
Right? You can leverage that, as well as, to your point, when you start exercising, when you start moving the body. Scientists now say it's a little bit of Ritalin, right? It helps with your focus, and a little bit of Prozac helps with your mood. And that's, again, a natural thing we can do to raise our happiness, raise our focus, and it's simple, not easy, but it's simple to do.
Which I feel like the best things are, man. Like, at the end of the day, a lot of what we're talking about is a simple concept. Choose, slow down, choose, but it's not easy. Like, and also too, it's like, once you get it, it's like the idea of enlightenment, right? You can pursue enlightenment your whole life, but at the end of the day, it doesn't like, once you get it, do you think you're done? Think you're good? No, like, no,
never.
Like, you're always going to be, because I was, again, a mentor I referred to earlier, he was the one that introduced me to this concept of being conscious versus unconscious. I go, is there anything that makes you go unconscious still? Even though, like, to me, he's like a black belt. He's like, yeah, my son. My son still to this day, he'll say something and it'll piss me off, and I go unconscious. And it's something I'm still working on. And he's like, his son's like 20. And so it's like, oh, it's like, you don't forget. I look up to these people, but they're still working on this shit too. We all are.
Yep. Every single person is. That's just something, when you come to that realization that no matter who you look up to, every single person is going through this human experience, and they're all working on stuff that we all deal with. Right. And that is incredible when you think about that. And so many times we'll beat ourselves up over and over again, because it's like, why is this why am I like this? So you could throw a golf ball and hit 10 other people. They're dealing with the same stuff. You just don't know it. right? So that gives you a little bit of comfort. And then just that never-ending journey, like your mentor. Everybody's working on things, and when you're on that quest to be better, it's incredibly powerful. And just know, hey, if you're getting better today than you were yesterday, that's progress, and progress is going to have you be happier. It's going to have you feel fulfilled, and it's going to continue that journey down to the best version of yourself, which is ultimately the game we're playing.
It's a beautiful thing, Jeff. Well, listen, man, in the description below, when you're listening to this, guys, like, you have your website here, your Instagram, like all your links will be in the description. But is there anything that you want to tell people that's a little bit more time sensitive? Anything that you think can help people they can go and download or go reach out to you about?
Yep. So they can go out to my website, grab my white paper on the 9 things highly peak performers, highly effective people do in the morning. Free download, great thing to implement. Again, make it simple, make it easy, make it laughable, and then just start and then do it again tomorrow.
And also, I see your book here, which, by the way, hit this buy now button on Amazon. I'm going to pick this up, Rise, Fight, Love, Repeat. I appreciate that, man. This is good. Hold on. Place your order. Boom. You got another person to buy your book.
There you go. Thank you, man.
Thanks for joining the podcast, dude. This was tons of fun. I love what you're doing. Again, the reason why I love having coaches on you, like you on, is because, look, I mean, yes, of course, there's a way to grow a business. There's a way to be an entrepreneur on the how side, but people forget about the intangibles. People forget about the stuff that actually matters most. I mean, look, even if you're, even let's say you're listening to this and you're a 6-figure coach, right? Like, you're already like, yeah, I'm crushing it right now. Well, here's the truth. How you think has gotten you to 6 figures. But maybe someone like Jeff can help you get to 7, because guess what? You do have to elevate a little bit. Like, what was the old saying, right? What got you here won't get you there. So, Jeff, again, I appreciate what you're doing. It matters. It's important. And I'll see you soon, man. Thank you for listening to The Elevated Entrepreneur. If you want to check out more about the guest, look at the description below. And as always, if you're a beginner coach or even someone that's seasoned and you're looking to join a community of like-minded individuals, learn about branding, lead generation, sales, you name it, think about applying to the Elevated Coaches Academy. You can learn more about that in the description below. I look forward to having you in the next episode. We'll talk to you soon. Stay motivated, stay elevated.